The moment changed my life happened between the cereal aisle and the frozen foods, on a Tuesday that was supposed to be forgettable. I was standing there, holding a basket with half-priced bread and instant noodles, when a woman stepped into my space with a certainty that made my chest tighten. Her eyes locked onto mine as if she had been searching for me across years, not aisles, and she said she knew me, not in a casual, mistaken way, but with a weight that landed hard, like a truth finally catching up. My first instinct was fear, then confusion, then a strange ache I couldn't name. Before the story pulls you deeper, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that broken lives can still be mended, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so these stories keep reaching hearts like yours. I was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time, in a small apartment that smelled faintly of old coffee and loneliness. My name is Matthew, and back then I was a man quietly disappearing. I worked nights unloading, trucks, slept days, and avoided mirrors because they reminded me of who I used to be. Years earlier, I had been someone with plans, someone people relied on. But life had a way of stacking losses until standing upright felt like an achievement. My wife, Rachel, had died suddenly from an undiagnosed heart condition, leaving me with grief so heavy it bent my spine. Our son, Joshua, was only 6 then, and while I loved him more than my own breath, I failed him in ways that still haunted me. I drank too much, missed too many school events, and eventually lost custody after a slow, humiliating spiral. By the time I found myself in that grocery store, Joshua was living with my sister in Indiana, and I was a man defined by regret. The woman who approached me looked ordinary at first glance, the kind of person you'd pass without noticing. Her name, I would later learn, was Hannah. She had tired eyes but a steady posture, as if life had tested her and she had chosen to stand anyway. When she said she knew me, my mind raced through possibilities, an old coworker, a mistake from my past, someone I had hurt and forgotten. I felt exposed, like the thin walls I'd built around myself had cracked open. She explained, without drama, that she had known my family once, years ago, through church connections in Cincinnati, back when Rachel was alive. She had volunteered in the nursery, remembered Joshua's laugh, remembered me smiling. Hearing that detail hurt more than any accusation could have, because it reminded me that I had once been visible, known, and good. I wanted to escape, to mumble an excuse and leave my basket behind, but something held me there. Maybe it was the exhaustion of running from myself, or maybe it was the quiet kindness in Hannah's expression. She didn't look at me with pity or judgment, only recognition. She told me she had almost walked past, unsure, but something in her heart told her not to. That she believed moments like this were not accidents. As she spoke, I felt the shame rise, the familiar heat behind my eyes. I hadn't told anyone in years how far I'd fallen. I hadn't admitted out loud that I was lonely, that I missed my son so much it physically hurt, that every night I asked God for forgiveness and wondered if he was still listening. Life didn't magically change after that encounter. In fact, the days that followed were some of the hardest, because hope, once stirred, can make despair louder. Hannah didn't promise to fix anything. She simply reminded me of who I had been and who I could still be. She mentioned that she worked with a local outreach program that helped parents reconnect with their children, that they believed in restoration rather than punishment. At first I dismissed it. I had tried programs before. I had failed. Failure had become my language. But her words lingered, echoing during my night shifts, following me home in the quiet hours before sleep. The real challenge wasn't external, it was internal. It was facing the man I had become and accepting responsibility without drowning in it. I had to confront my drinking, admit I needed help, and show up consistently when no one was watching. I enrolled in counseling through a community church in Columbus, one I hadn't set foot in for years. Walking through those doors felt like stepping into a courtroom, but instead of condemnation, I found patience. Men named Thomas and Andrew sat with me week after week, listening without flinching as I unpacked my failures. Slowly the fog began to lift. Not all at once, but enough for me to see a path. Months passed. I stayed sober. I saved money. I wrote letters to Joshua that I wasn't sure he would ever read, but writing them reminded me why I was fighting. Hannah checked in occasionally, never pushing, always encouraging. She became a quiet thread of grace woven through a season that could have unraveled me completely. With the help of the outreach program, I petitioned for supervised visitation. The day I saw Joshua again, now taller, more reserved, was the most terrifying and beautiful moment of my life. He didn't run into my arms like he used to, but he stayed. He listened. He smiled, just a little. Rebuilding trust is slow, and it is humbling. There were setbacks, awkward silences, and moments when I questioned whether I deserved any of this. But I kept showing up. I learned to forgive myself enough to keep going. I found a better job, one with daylight hours, and moved into a cleaner, brighter apartment. I started volunteering, packing food boxes for families who reminded me of my own past. Somewhere along the way, I realized that the man in the grocery store aisle had been standing at a crossroads, and choosing not to run had changed everything. If this story is reaching you in a quiet moment, maybe when you're scrolling late at night or feeling unseen, I want you to know that redemption doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it walks up to you in a grocery store and says it remembers you. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who might need encouragement, and subscribe so more stories of hope can find their way to people who feel lost. Just before this story ends, I have one special request. Please comment below with the word hope if you believe that no one is too far gone to be found again. Today, I still shop at that same grocery store. Every time I pass the aisle where Hannah stopped me, I pause for a second. Not because I'm waiting for another miracle, but because I've learned to recognize them when they happen. My relationship with Joshua is still growing, still healing, but it's real. I'm no longer invisible to myself, and I've come to believe that sometimes God uses strangers to remind us of our own names, our own worth, and the future we thought we lost.